Hi, I'm Kelly and I'm back. I have been trading lately and I want to share my trades with you and share what I've learned. Sorry, I just hit the camera and it made it wiggle. Anyways, let's get right into it. So this is today's trade that I made, or I guess I should say tested, because I am still not using real money. I don't know. Anyways, I am not using real money because I have to be super confident in my own ability before I'm ready to use money. I am not a risk taker. I'm very risk averse. And I don't know, that might be unusual in trading because it sounds like everybody else is really like into the risk thing, but I'm not. So I'm going to show you how I do my practice. And my goal is to feel confident. And when I feel confident, I am going to start using real money. But let me show you what I've done. So this was today, but in order for me to really talk about today, I need to talk about yesterday also. So yesterday, because today is sort of like the end cap to yesterday, I guess I would say. So yesterday I had been watching it and I wanted to trade because I had been practicing and I had been like getting back into it and I wanted to do some trades yesterday. But I was watching it and it was just like I never caught a setup that would fit my strategy. And I just kept like missing. Every time that I should have traded, I was busy doing something. Anyways, I really wanted to trade yesterday and I wasn't able to make a trade yesterday. But what I noticed, we had been in this like smaller trend channel yesterday, like through the night, the day before, and into the day of yesterday. We had been like just kind of bouncing up and down in this small trend channel with a very low slope upward. Okay. And then we came to the top of the trend channel, tried to go up, but couldn't. So then had a breakout down where we broke out of this trend. But always keep in mind, not just the trend that you can see on your current time scale, but also the larger trends. Because when I looked at the larger trends, actually what looks like a downward breakout, which I mean, on this time scale, it was a downward breakout. But on a larger time scale, we were just bouncing off of the bottom of a trend line. So we bounced off of the bottom of this trend line towards the end of the day yesterday, or the end of market yesterday. And we had a huge breakout to the upside after we had that bounce. So then overnight and like after hours, we were just kind of hanging around at the top of the trend line. We were kind of flirting with the top of it. We went over it for a while and it looked like maybe we were going to break out above the trend line. But then we came back down and it was like we had, like I would say at about this moment, that was about 3 a.m. my time, Central Time, we lost momentum and we started going downward. So then we had this small trend channel that was going downward. And this is about when I started looking at it in the morning. And first it did this. We exited that small trend channel and it looked like we were breaking out above. But here we hit that top channel line, the larger channel line, and we could not, like, I mean, look, to the dot, we hit it right there. We could not go above it. So we lost all of the seller momentum here, or at least that's like how I imagine it, as losing momentum. And then we started going down, and it was not just like a downward where we go down to the bottom of this trend channel and then bounce back up, but we actually had a breakout. So this large bar right here would be a breakout from this trend channel right here. And because this bar is so large, I kind of started looking, I guess, around this time. So we had this large bar down and followed by two more pretty solid downward bars. So when I see this as being a significant breakout. It's a breakout that has like the energy needed to keep going. That's how I would describe it. If this had been like one large bar and then like some small ones or some doji bars or something, then I wouldn't have been so sure. But I felt pretty confident that this was a solid breakout. So what I did was I measured from where it broke out of this trend to like the lowest point, and that is going to be my measured move. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But then we went upward for a while, which is not unexpected. It doesn't mean that just because we're going upward doesn't mean that we're going to like that the trend has completely changed. It's just we're retesting this breakout to see if this breakout is going to remain intact or if it's going to fail. So we went up, and typically you'll go close to this like bottom trend line right here, but we never did touch it yet. And we started kind of going back down again. You can see how like the high of this, even though it's a green bar, the high of it did not go as high as this red bar's high. So right around here, I decided that I thought this was a good place to enter. Now, this was not where I normally enter. Like this, I haven't started trading on breakouts yet, very much at all. I've pretty much been sticking to trend channels and just like catching the bounces on trend channels, which is a very simple strategy. And I'm just keeping it simple. But I saw this breakout and I really kind of like believed in the validity of the breakout. So I wanted to test out trading a breakout. So at this point, I entered a short. And what I put for my risk or my stop loss is, you can see it right here, but it's basically almost to this bottom trend channel line right here. And I said like my risk is here because we might retest the trend line. Now, it looked like this bar was our retest and we never did all the way get to the trend line, but you never know. Sometimes you like retest it twice. Sometimes it like comes up and then it tries a second leg up to test that trend line and you see if you fail or succeed. So that's why my risk was there and I felt pretty good about the risk being there. And then for my profit or my take profit, I really could have, like, if I was confident in this strategy, I probably would have put my take profit just a tick or two before this measured move position. And now where I put this measured move is pretty conservative, I would say, because really when we're saying it's a measured move, like I'm expecting that not only are we going to have this downward trend, which came down to here, but then at that point we would have another one that would come down from here. And if you look at that, like look at where we actually ended up going, like it is super close to being exactly a measured move. So that's probably where like a confident trader would have put their take profit. But I still am not sure, and I'm just testing out this strategy. So I decided to do my measured move by where we retested from the last. So that's what I did. And using that as my measured move, I set my take profit. Now, this take profit was actually very conservative. I could have gone a lot lower. But if you look here, I still have over a 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio. So this is still a really good trade. And I wasn't sure about it. I'm just like testing it and trying to gain confidence with it. So that's why I'm sure that a lot of people will tell me that I took profits too soon and I should have let it continue down more. And I mean, really, there was a ton of profit to be made. Let's say that if you had watched this breakout happen and then waited for a second entry, or waited for like the retest to fail. So like maybe you would have waited there, maybe you would have bought, even if you bought like at the bottom of this line, let's say, there was a potential profit for 186 points, and that's points. So that's like, I don't know, what number is that? 186 times 20. So that's $3,720. And that's just catching the second measured move. If you had noticed this from the beginning and you could have caught both measured moves, then it would have been twice that much, which is crazy. But anyways, that was the trade that I took. I waited for a retest of the breakout. And when I felt like that retest was failing, I entered. And at that point, I put my risk to the top of the trend line. And I put my take profit. You really could have done it as a measured move, but I just kind of arbitrarily picked an area that I felt good with because of the risk to reward ratio. And also because I was looking at where my previous low was. I expected us to create new lows, but just to be safe, I was going somewhere around where the previous low was to be safe. And as you can see, what I thought would happen happened, and then some. So we came really far down. Like I said, it was a complete measured move down. And then we got down, we never did get to touch this bottom trend line. We got down to close to, I would say that's below 25%. That's like, I don't know, maybe 15% down. And then we bounced up for a while. It does look like now we're going back down. So I considered, I was like, do I want to try to enter again right here for like to try to catch the bounce back up? But I didn't feel good about it because we didn't actually hit the bottom. Now, I know a lot of times you don't actually hit the bottom. A lot of times you just kind of like come close to it and then you bounce upward. But I was not feeling sure that this was going to be like that our trend had reversed and we were going all the way up at this point. And I'm glad I didn't, because now we're back down almost to where we were before. Now, this might be a good place for like a double bottom. Like if you had sort of like a W where it's one line here. Let me, is it more helpful if I draw it maybe? Maybe. So if we had, like this and then this, and then if we come down to right about the same, then I would kind of expect we would do this number. But we have these are a lot of red bars, consecutive red bars. So we might just have too much momentum downward where we might actually come back down to the line before we bounce up. So at this point, I'm not making a trade. But one of the things that is important that I was reminded of today as I was doing this trade is that in the beginning, when I was just looking at this, when I was looking at it on the 5-minute time scale and just looking at what happened like last night and this morning, which is what I typically do. Like I don't really look at the big scale of things because I'm not going to be holding my position for that long. But when I looked at this and I couldn't really find a trade and I couldn't really figure out like what are we going to be doing next, then I started going backwards and I started saying, okay, well, like let's look at the 4-hour chart. Okay, well, this is going to look crazy at first, but when we look at the 4-hour chart, that's where I drew this trend channel on the 4-hour chart. I started connecting some of our lows, connecting some of our highs, and that looks like a pretty clean and clear trend channel that makes sense now. And now that I've seen that on the 4-hour, it made it a lot easier whenever I come back to the 5-hour to feel confident about us going, and then this other one, to feel confident about us coming back to this 4-hour trend line. But then also, let me show you, if I looked on the day, which I know this is, I'm sorry, I make all these like little notes on things. So it's a mess, but you can see, when I look at it on the days, there was, and also on the weeks, I think I had maybe drawn this from, there is definitely a trend line that we've been hitting. We've hit 1, 2, 3, I think we hit it in there 4, 5, 6 times, something like 5 to 6 times we hit this trend line. Although we did go below it here. So that trend, I think, is still in play. So that trend, that larger, like much larger trend, just backed up my 4-hour trend. You can see how they kind of are playing off of each other. Like they're both having a similar slope, but one is just a larger scale trend than the other. So that gave me more confidence that we are going to need to return back to the bottom of these trend lines at some point. So my recommendation would be that if you are looking at the charts and something like it's just not making sense, you are not finding a pattern, can't see clearly what is happening, then oh shoot, I just moved it. Then try to zoom out to a larger time frame and see if it makes more sense, because sometimes it does. Okay, so thanks for joining in on this. I hope it helps somebody, and I'll try to keep doing this to show y'all what I'm learning.